In this lecture, we're going to create a particle system to indicate whether there are any active power-ups for our player. Let's jump right into it. Before moving on, there's one thing I'd like to fix before wrapping up our power-up system. And it's the fact that there's no obvious way to tell when the player has a power-up active. So when I start the game and collect this power-up, it's not super obvious when it actually runs out. I know that it ran out just now because I started spinning slowly, but otherwise it's not obvious to the player. We could add some text on the screen telling the player that there's a power-up active, but I think that would be a little boring. Instead, how about we create some sort of particle system coming from out of the player to show that the power-up is currently active. And that is actually going to be your challenge. I'd like you to create a particle system for the player that plays whenever a power-up is currently active. There's no need to mess around with the code just yet, so turn on Play on Awake inside of the particle system so you can see how it looks while the game is running. This is a great opportunity for you to flex your creativity and think about what the particle system might actually look like. So go ahead and pause the video to take on this challenge, and I'll see you in just a bit. Alright, excellent job with that challenge. I'm going to start making my particle system by actually copying the snow particles that we made before. So I'll duplicate this with Ctrl D, then put it in the middle of my player. So I'll just move it over here, and the first thing I'd like to change is the color of these particles. So rather than keep them on white, I'm going to make them a random between two colors. My player. So I'll just move it over here, and the first thing I'd like to change is the color of these particles. So rather than keep them on white, I'm going to make them a random between two colors. and I'll choose to make them a random between, let's say, two different shades of green. Particles. So rather than keep them on white, I'm going to make them a random between two colors, and I'll choose to make them a random between, let's say, two different shades of green. So I'll make the second color just a lighter tone for some variety. With the colors changed, I'm not totally satisfied with this effect, so let's actually change the way these particles spawn by going down to the shape module. I'd like to widen the spread that's being shot out of the particle system, so I'll change the arc from 60 degrees to 180. And then I'll change the rotation back to 0. I think that looks a lot better because it looks like my player is powered up. We can also increase the amount of particles being spread, so I'll open up my mission. And I'll change the rate over time to 30 particles every second. Finally, to make these particles a bit more dramatic, I'm going to increase the start lifetime from 1 second to 1.5 seconds.
Centralicances. Interesting time to stream.
Mm-hmm. That is the latest I've done.
I'm also going to increase the start speed from 15 to 25. There's probably a lot more that I can do with this particle system, but I think this is pretty good for now. So I'll turn on Play on Awake, and let's see how it looks inside of the game. Now that I'm looking at it, the light green is kind of hard to see on the bright blue background. So you know what, I'm going to change the colors completely. Very quickly, I'm going to change the start colors from green to something like a fire effect with orange and red. I think that looks a... You know what, I'm going to change the colors completely. Very quickly, I'm going to change the start colors from green to something like a fire effect with orange and red. I think that looks a lot nicer, so let's see how it looks when the game is running. Alright, so my player is unleashing sort of a fire effect while moving in the world. That's looking good, so I'll turn off Play on Awake. And I want to turn this on whenever we collect a power-up.
Where's Plan Awake? Oh, there it is.
And turn it off when the power-up runs out. Sort of a fire effect while moving in the world. That's looking good, so I'll turn off Play on Awake, and I want to turn this on whenever we collect a power-up, and turn it off when the power-up runs out. I'm also
How Plan Awake turned off though? Oh, but it's still No, there we go. No, no, it's not playing. Whee. There's like a delay, I guess.
also going to change its name to Power-Up Particles. Let's head over to the player controller script so we can turn this on whenever we collect a power-up, and turn it off when the power-up runs out. I'm also going to change its name to Power-Up Particles. Let's head over to the player controller script so we can control these particles. First, I'm going to create a new serialized field to store our particle system, which I'm going to call Power-Up Particles. Now that we have the particle system, you might think it's... First, I'm going to create a new serialized field to store our particle system, which I'm going to call power-up particles. Now that we have the particle system, you might think it's as simple as playing it when we activate the power-ups, and stopping it when we deactivate the power-up. And that's almost how we're going to do it, but there is one exception we need to be careful of. And it's the fact that there could be multiple power-ups active at the same time. So if I head back into Unity and duplicate this power-up and put it over here, then we could have multiple different power-ups that are active at the same time. So this first power-up could be, let's say for example, a speed power-up, and the second one could be a torque power-up. And both of these will work together. You can even collect multiple of the same power-up in order to stack its effects. So the problem here is that we can't disable the power-up particles whenever we run the deactivate power-up method. You can even collect multiple of the same power-up in order to stack its effects. So the problem here is that we can't disable the power-up particles whenever we run the deactivate power-up method. Because if we deactivate one power-up, there could still be other power-ups that are currently active. So we don't want to turn off the particles if there are still some active power-ups. Back in our code, we could start by playing the particles whenever we activate a power-up. makes sense because we always want the particles to be playing as soon as we collect a power-up. When it comes to stopping the particles, though, we only want that to happen when there aren't any active power-ups. How do we know if there are any active power-ups? Well, we can just make a variable to track that. At the top of my script, I'm going to create a new integer variable, which I'm going to call active power-up count, to count the number of power-ups that are currently active. And very simply, I'm going to scroll down to activate power-up, and I'm going to increase the count by 1 whenever we activate a power-up. So active power-up count plus equals 1. Then when we deactivate a power-up, I'm going to decrease the count by 1 as well. Active power-up count minus equals 1. Now I have a number of the currently active power-ups. We want to deactivate the particles once there aren't any power-ups active, so I'll create a new if statement checking if the active power-up count is currently 0. If it is, then we'll stop the particles with power-up particles.stop. And
Jolan TV says, hello.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Doing,
That should be it. Now it won't stop whenever a single power-up runs out of time. Now let's head back to Unity and test the game. And I'm getting an error, of course, because I forgot to put the power-up particles. So over in my serialized field, I'm going to grab these and put them inside. Okay, now let's run the game for real this time. As soon as I touch the power-up, it starts up my particles, and as soon as the torque power-up runs out, then it's going to stop the particles. Alright, perfect. So that should be it for our power-up system and also this lecture. We learned how to play and stop some particle effects whenever we activate or deactivate power-ups. Excellent work this lecture, and I'll see you in the next video.
Well, okay, cool. I'm gonna end the stream here because I will be streaming later. But yeah, thanks, guys. See ya.